Okay, thank you all for coming. My name is Tilly. I am the workshop coordinator for Assure, aka the affiliated students for undergraduate research and engagement. We also have with us Sedona. She is the president of the American Institute of Architecture Students, and we're going to hear from her today about her work as well. So today we are going to cover the second half of our objectives for this workshop series. We are going to talk a little bit more about abstracts and solidify that skill. And we're going to see a lot of presentations today, a lot of presentation examples of architecture and design work that has already been done by students that is super easily adaptable to the Undergraduate Research Symposium. Examples of how you guys don't have to do any extra work to present at the symposium besides just preparing a presentation and then enjoying presenting. And we're also going to go over some tips and tricks for presentations. So first, let's start with completing our tutorial on abstracts. So this is an abstract from the Undergraduate Research Symposium. Keep in mind the requirements for the abstracts. The titles for the abstracts can be maximum of 30 words. And the body can be maximum of 250 words. So go ahead and take a read of this abstract, run your eyes over it. And when you're going through it, see if you can identify the parts that we talked about in the last workshop, which are the introduction, the research question or purpose statement, the methods, the results, conclusion, and significance. And identify what you like about this abstract and what you think perhaps could be improved.
Tilly, can I quickly interrupt you a little bit?
Of course.
Sorry, it might be out of plan. But one of my concern was if everyone knows exactly what they are going to work on. So we might actually need to first have a very quick review of like if there's any questions about what people are picking from their studio works or other projects that they want to share with the basically present at the symposium.
Sure. So does that mean you'd like to start by going over the presentations that we have or take some questions?
So if you have any particular questions, because it's kind of the follow-up workshop on the presentations we had earlier.
Sure,
So
that's
the
a great idea.
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, if you're wondering what part of your projects you could work on or questions related to that, or if you already know what you are going to do, it's just the writing of the abstract, and we just could continue with that. So maybe just a few seconds to see if any question comes up with that. I mean, on that subject.
Good idea. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a question about like titling. Because when we title for a normal presentation, it's pretty architectural based, like here's the name of my building and here's what's in it, kind of like it's this kind of center for this kind of people. Do you recommend for the submission, if we're doing our thesis projects for the symposium, to use a more research or like concept-based title, like include the building title and then kind of what is the concept, like we're trying to do this with this building, rather than like it's a mixed use building for this? And maybe Solmaz or QHO could have some input on that.
That's an awesome question. Yeah, I'll first give it to you guys.
Yeah, I was actually also going to say that's a really, really good question. How to basically frame your project.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have the name of your project, but as you were suggesting earlier, I think that's a much better approach to kind of give a little bit about the concept of this project, why it is a research, what are you exploring in that, what different approaches you are taking in that. So I won't worry about having the name of the project there if it's something really interesting you want to explain. Or in terms of function, like if mixed use is really what you are going to focus on, I would have it on the title. But if there's one particular thing about that mixed use that you are exploring, that's probably the main thing that you want to highlight in the title.
Cool.
There's a several approach. It's up to you. Now, when you think about what is your personality in this? So think about that. And then who is your audience? So do you want to inspire them? That's the first things. So if you want to do that, you want to really invite them to take a look at your work. So what would be the best representations of your work? So maybe your approach could be very straightforward, because if you see, hey, if you have a very vague word, very poetic work, people might see that one as very poetic. They may expect your work might be very creative work. Or maybe you can simply say, hey, this is straightforward. I want to have a very strong message for you. It's a very straightforward title. That may work as well. So think about who might be, what is your style, how the title represent you, and also how the titles grab others' attentions. So think about those two things. That will help.
Cool, thank you.
Those were super excellent answers. I could not have said it better myself. Yeah, does anybody else have other questions? That was an awesome one.
I have kind of like a comment. I know we're going to get into this later, but for those of you that don't know, I think the word research is like very intimidating. And it's something that we kind of think about pretty often in the beginning stages of our design, like site research, site analysis. And so I don't want anyone to be like scared of that, because it's something that's so integrated in what we do. We just don't realize it. So I do want to make sure everybody feels like very welcome and excited to present and definitely apply for this.
Thank you so much for touching on that, Sedona. That's such an important point. And it surprises me that some of you might not think you do research, because in the work that I've seen, it has been extremely research intensive. It has been super impressive. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find another discipline that's more suited to this event. Yeah, does anybody else have any questions or comments about this?
I have a question that maybe we'll touch on later, but it's more pragmatic for UO and Solmaz. I've been talking to Linda about how much of like our human first person research we're allowed to incorporate, because it was not university sanctioned with all of those forms and stuff that you have to fill out. So if we're directing like our thesis projects towards this, is it off the table to use our primary research and listing people or talking about takeaways from the primary research? Or should it be like, we don't really mention that we did that because it's not university sanctioned?
My belief, if that is the part of the classwork, you don't need IRB approval. That's my understanding. So now, if that is the particularly planned for any particular hypothesis and scientific research, you do need IRB. But if that is a part of the interview and those kind of stuff, so I think that is exempt of IRB approval if that is the part of the class activities. That's my understanding. Now, if you want to use the interview, you don't want to really highlight the interview part. If you really pay attention to, if you really want to highlight the the human subject related issues, then there might be some issue can raised. So to me, is if that is a part of just design practice, that interview is a very natural component. But at the time, in that case, make sure that you don't reveal any individual identity in there.
Okay.
So if that is the, if you focus on the or more of a message, for example, I did some interview in there and then find out there's a themes among those interviewees. I found this kind of stuff. So that is kind of ongoing class activities as part of the design process. I think that will be fine.
Okay, so to clarify, I would be able to say, like, in my research phase, these are kind of issues that were brought up, but not naming so and so who does this said this.
You don't want to do it.
Okay,
right.
Cool.
And then another thing is to ensure that that is exempt of the IRB. there is a IRB officers in the IRB office. If you email her there, she's very, very quick. So reply will be very quick. So you can ensure that you're okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't decided exactly what direction I want this project to go, but if I know that that's off limits, that will obviously influence like what the direction of the presentation is.
Yeah, the one thing as a designers, and Serena really indicates a very, very important topic in here. We always talk about the research, right? Design research. I did research about this one. I have a precedent study. That's also my research. All design research, something you invest in something to find out about something. That is called research. Now, when you do this kind of stuff for something competitions or symposium, suddenly, oh, am I doing research? Right? So we're all doing the research. There's also very important idea of the scholarship. We should call it scholarship. So Boyer is really a frontier of the advocate of the what is the architectural scholarship should be. That is a scholarship of discovery, scholarship of teaching, scholarship of the application. This is what we do. So think about what is the message. So for example, hey, I'm so excited about my design process itself. So I really navigate the form, right? So that is called morphology. So when you do the morphology approach, you have so many different ideas. It's very, very creative ideas. Sharing that process itself could be very valid information for your audience because some people want to be inspired by your work. So that's where the creative expression can take kick in. So think about what is the message. It's not about what you want to do. It's about what kind of message you want to deliver. So if it's something you're really proud of, this is something we can change by doing this one. You feel compelled that you can change, you can suggest some design ideas to improve the quality of a human or quality of society. That's a great thing. If that is just your simple personal creative expressions that you want to really express it to the public, that's a great thing too. So that, or if you just simply you have some design solutions from the very complex things, and you feel the design approach is really applicable for some society, then you can just that is usually can be presented as a presentation form at the end. If that is the important message, then you can use that one. But when you think about those kind of stuff, is think about what is the message. That message is a little bit different than what we do in the architectural presentation, because in the architectural presentations, our audience is a professional. So what you do is, hey, we have this problem, and to solve this problem, I do this way. So those other folks, you use their language. But for this particular research symposium, your audience, someone else who don't know about what you're doing, then think about what is the message for them. And so what is the strength of your project? Then disseminate it.
Thank you so much, Professor An. That was really helpful. And that's such an awesome question. Solmaz, I'm glad we started with the Q&A. So thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask, or they're wondering about, they want to discuss?
I just wanted to add one more thing. As we were talking earlier about the rules of the symposium, you could submit more than one work. So if you have a studio work and you think that there was a part of research, like the precedent study or other parts of the research, you want to submit that one. And then at the same time, even same project, if you have the final project and there are concepts and other things that you want to highlight in it. So those are two different researches. You could submit both of them. And of course, you could submit things from your other courses as well. So just keep that in mind. If you're like between two different ideas, both of them are really good. As long as they don't overlap, you could submit both of them.
I love that comment. And I really hope that some of you do consider doing that, because that's a great opportunity. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to add? Other questions?
I think the furniture design project is absolutely perfect project to submit. If you have any furniture design project, submit it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good fit up as well from what I've seen. Yeah, any other questions or comments? If not right now, that's fine. We are absolutely going to address other questions throughout the workshop and definitely at the end of the workshop. So, or you could just put them in the chat and we'll address them when it's Q&A time again.
Diletta, can I ask a question? You, in terms of the process of the evaluations of award, do you have any internal process for that? Sounds like there's some sort of a survey that the people choose their best.
This is such a model Q&A session. Thank you, Professor Ahn. I love that question as well. So my understanding is that when you, let me go to the slide that's going to explain the timeline so you guys can understand a little bit better, and then we'll go back to the beginning. Okay, so after you register for the symposium, which is very easy, we'll just go over this now. So all you need to do to register for the symposium is you need to go on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. You need your name, the title of your project. So that's pretty open to interpretation like we discussed. What title do you think is best for your project? You need to decide on a presentation medium, which we are also going to cover again today. You need your faculty mentors, email address, all that good stuff. Then by April 24th, you'll have gotten an email asking you to confirm your registration by submitting an abstract. It is my understanding that at that point, you will be able to nominate yourself for awards. I think that most of these awards are self-nominated. So make sure to nominate yourself for any awards that you think you might fit with. And there's a description of all these awards that's very helpful on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this process?
So when you nominate yourself, you can nominate yourself for several multiple awards.
Yes,
right?
that's my understanding. Yeah.
So there's one award established for students in SAE. So that's the one.
Yes, and
so
it
we have
put it in
3
here.
awards given out, and then you can nominate yourself to other awards that may fit. So you can increase the possibility of getting multiple awards. So which might be very nice, right?
Exactly. And also we'll cover this right now. There are new awards from the School of Architecture and Environment. One award is $300. That's a lot of money. And there are 2 honorable mentions awards where you also get $100. It's fantastic. And you just have to click a button and submit yourself. It's so easy. Yeah, any other questions or comments about this? Okay, if there's not other questions or comments right now, I will return to my admittedly slightly less interesting abstract presentation. So we're all solid on the abstract stuff when we get to submitting for the deadline on April 24th. But if you have other questions, please chime in. This has been super productive. And if you have comments to anything you want to add, you guys go ahead. Okay, so again, returning to the abstract real quick, take a minute to read the abstract, identify parts that you like about the abstract and parts that you don't like about the abstract. And to be clear, this is a really good abstract already. So how can we take this abstract from really good to really super fantastic? And keep in mind that abstracts are for people who are educated, but not necessarily informed about the field. So if there's something you don't understand, it doesn't mean that it's about you, it's about the abstract. So take a minute to read it and then we'll discuss. Okay, so when you guys have finished reading it, go ahead and shout out your thoughts or put your thoughts in the Zoom chat. Or if you guys aren't feeling participating right now, that's okay. Sometimes that happens on Zoom. I will walk through the abstract, but I'd love to start with your thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to start discussing. If you guys have thoughts, though, please feel free to chime in. First, I'd like to start with the title. I think this is a really great title, and it's a strategy that we discussed in the last webinar. It's combining strategies here. So one of the strategies that you can use to title your work is by asking a question. And it kind of jives with your research question, the question that's in your title. So who's allowed in? And then they give a little mini summary, which is another titling strategy in the second half of the abstract title. One thing I really like about this abstract is that it kind of has a very clear process for how the students accomplish this goal. It has a very clear purpose statement. They even use the phrase, the purpose of this runaway is to question and explore. So they have a very clear purpose statement. I think their methods is pretty clear as well. And does anybody see anything missing from this abstract? I think that the significance of this work could definitely be emphasized a bit more. This person has about 100 words left. Again, the word limit for the Undergraduate Research Symposium is 250 words. And so it's important to touch on the significance of your work, the broader significance. How does this affect the reader's daily life? How does it affect the field more broadly? And what do you think this research could change about how someone views the world or how the world operates, things like that. And so I find when I am reading abstracts and there's words left over, that's a common theme, that people forget the significance of their work, which is the most important part because it is significant. So when you're writing your abstract, make sure to include why your work is important. Okay, so now we're going to review some presentation types because as Professor Ahn and Professor Insolmes have mentioned, there are different things that you can emphasize in these different formats. And we went over this a little bit last time, but I think it'd be helpful to go over this again. So first, you can do a poster presentation. The poster presentations are 3 to 5 minutes in length and they are pre-recorded. Poster presentations are shorter, so you can share your screen on Zoom and then record yourself there. There are instructions on how to do this on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. Poster presentations are if you want to do a shorter presentation and show only one still image or a few images. If you want to include more images and your presentation, you want to include a little bit more information, you want it to be a little longer, oral presentations are for you. They are not pre-recorded and there will be live engagement. And I want to mention with the poster presentations, there will be an optional live engagement situation where you can engage with other folks who are presenting posters in your discipline. But oral presentations during live engagement, that is required, and you'll kind of get to see what other folks in your discipline are doing. And we also have data stories, which are also not pre-recorded, and live engagement is mandatory. They can be 10 to 15 minutes, so they're a little bit shorter than oral presentations. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between oral presentations and data stories besides the length? And this touched on something Professor Ahn said. If you would like to focus more on your methods and how you got to your conclusion or the process of your research, then data stories are a good fit for you. Data stories are meant for projects where you want to focus on the process of your creation. And so data stories are a really great option if perhaps your work is not entirely finished yet, or what's really, really important to you about your work is how it happened. Or if you're like posters, oral presentations, or data stories, they don't seem to jive with the project that I have in mind, creative works presentations are for you. They can be live or pre-recorded. The length can vary because if your project doesn't fit with these time limits in data stories or presentations and posters, Creative works presentation gives you another option about how to organize your work time-wise. And generally, there's some live engagement with creative works presentations.
Can I?
Of course.
Can you go back to the kind of abstract slide? Tilana made a really important point of this symposium. You don't have to finish your work. So goal of this symposium is disseminate your thinking process or disseminate your work. Because of sometimes we disseminate our research or design research, there's no outcome yet. But by disseminating those ideas, and then you can get some feedback from participants, get some additional ideas to move on. So that is also very important process of design research as well. So again, you don't have to finish it. So if you go to the abstract part again, think about that. In terms of the writing of the good abstract, there's a very particular structure. It's all same, but let's try to plug this one into your very creative process. Title. In the title, in this particular case, it captures questions, problems. Okay, this is the problem, and also capture essence of what is the content of your research, right? So it really tells about output. It tells about your motivations. In the structure of abstract, very, very clear. There's always why you're doing this. So starting point is your identification of the problem. Oh, there's a problem here. We have to address it, right? Or I'm just curious about it. So that is why you're doing this. The second one, and then you says, what is the goal of this one then? Right? And the third one, how you did it, right? Fourth one, what kind of information you want to disseminate. So always the same ideas, but when you plug that one into your view, then you can find out it's very easy to follow. So whenever you do any kind of abstract in any kind of stuff, whether it is a design abstract for your design presentation or abstract for the design concept, all the stuff all have the same structure. So you're gonna repeat the same structure all again for your entire life. So why we're doing this and what I'm gonna do, how I do it, what would be an outcome I'd like to disseminate. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And thank you for touching on that again. If you guys want to know more, we dove into abstract structure a lot, and Professor An just gave a super great overview of the exact structure we talked about. Go to the YouTube channel of the Undergraduate Research Symposium, and we talk more about the anatomy of the abstract and how to put those pieces together. And I think that Professor An touched on a really great point, which is that abstracts, we often think of abstracts as like dividing them by discipline, but they are the same structure for the rest of your life, like Professor An said, across all disciplines. So don't be intimidated when you see like a science abstract. Like not everybody understands them, and it's the exact same structure that you'll be using. Yeah. Okay, so returning to presentation formats, if you Google a traditional like research poster, you'll see a poster that has a lot of words and things like that, and that may not be suitable for your work, and it has like a lot of figures from R and things like that. So a poster does not have to be a bunch of words, methods, results, and then graphs. A poster can be just a still image or a series of still images, but no matter what, in whether you're doing a poster presentation or an oral presentation, this is the information that you need to include in your presentation: your name, faculty mentor's name, university affiliations of both of you. So if your faculty member is associated with a different university, you need to denote that. And what department are you affiliated with? And if you received funding for this resource, for the project, then your funding sources should also be acknowledged. So you can take some liberty with these formats as long as you include these things. And of course, we mentioned the awards already. So, but just to emphasize it again, you can win money, money, money. And that's an option. That's a great opportunity. And so again, to just go over, like Professor Ahn mentioned, the anatomy of the abstract. First, the informative title is super important. It's kind of the hook of your abstract. And so it should be informative and it should make the reader want to learn more about your abstract and give them a sense of what you're going to talk about going in. The introductory sentences are kind of like a toolbox for your abstract. What does your reader need to know in order to understand the rest of your abstract? Hypothesis or question is, like Professor Ahn said, why are you doing this? What's your goal? Is it to explore? Is it to create? Is it to investigate or question something that's well established? Maybe it's not so true. What are you doing? Methods, how are you doing it? Are you building something? Are you researching something? Are you sketching something? Results, what happened after you did your methods? Conclusion, what can we learn from your results? What do your results mean in the broader context of your project? And results and conclusion are kind of related, so I often talk about them in one piece. And then significance, which is my favorite part of any abstract in any presentation. Why is it important? And so when you include these pieces in your abstract, you also want to include them in any presentation that you do. So this is not only an outline for your abstract, it's an outline for your presentation. So this is an example of a poster presentation that was given at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And first off, one thing I noticed is that this person did not include the necessary information, which is okay. But again, you want to include your name, faculty mentor's name, university affiliations, all that good stuff. But this is an example of how you can incorporate an architecture design, one still image that you think is really important and you want to discuss in that kind of format of the abstract that you can do at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. That's a really great example of that. And here's another example provided by Professor Ahn. Thank you for the wonderful example of a project that I think could either easily be adapted to a poster presentation or a data story in oral presentation, because there's a lot of stuff going on here. This person covers a lot of ground in this kind of one image, so it would be totally cool to break that down and do a data story or an oral presentation and explain these parts more individually. This is also an awesome example. This could be presented as a poster if you added that necessary information, or it could be presented as a data story or an oral presentation if you just kind of separated it into slides or adapted the figures and information that you already have into another medium that's kind of more legible for the reader. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sedona to talk about her fantastic, beautiful, wonderful work. So I'm going to stop my share so Sedona can start sharing.
Hi, everyone. In case you came in late or you haven't attended the last workshop, I'm just going to, as I'm setting up, give a brief kind of summary of everything. So this research symposium has gone on for many, many years. So this is the 11th year of the annual event, which is incredible. And I think a really big thing this year is encouraging architecture engagement and kind of getting us to feel welcome and included in this, even though we always were. It was just, I think, a lack of advertising and just us being always busy and everyone being busy. So I definitely am happy to see people here, and it would be fantastic if they could get involved, because it is just picking a project and submitting it and doing all of the things that Tilly was mentioning with the abstract and all of that. So I definitely encourage it. But in regards to things that you could be doing, I would probably do something that was like a live oral presentation. So that's the 10 to 15 minute long presentation. And so in that case, I would live present kind of my project. And so I would talk about the background, the site analysis, that as an aspect of research, as well as the personal interview with the client. I would just not mention her name. And so that's touching on different ideas regarding background research and really building up the concept and showing the importance of that project. So that would then result in guiding principles and different precedent studies, as well as things like a mood board. So all of this is very applicable to research. We just don't really think about it like that because it's just the way that we kind of think and the way that we design. So I want to let everyone know. And then just, I think method-wise, you could talk about the way that you bring up a concept and different kind of finishes and that process work. I think also, I don't know, Tilly, we didn't touch on this, but I would probably add in like a midterm review as research as well, because that's getting an outside perspective from a professional or a teacher, which I feel like is definitely a part of research, is getting like peer reviews. And so that is good as well. So this is just showing some things that could be applicable, but definitely not limited to at all. I'm sure if I were presenting this, I'd probably remove a few things just to really highlight the main point and the main focus of the design, which is very much community oriented. So this project would be focused on connecting with the community during COVID-19. And so it was all about making sure things were safely distanced while also providing an architecture firm for an awesome client. So really bringing the indoor to the space, or the outdoor to the indoor. And then connecting to the community with an initiative called Community 06 Plus. So that's really highlighting the research, connecting the community into this space. And this was meant to be kind of a informational center for the historic viaduct, which is within Seattle. So it's given some kind of interesting connections there. Lots of research around that idea. But that is what I have so far. And I don't know, Kyuho or Tilly, if you have any reason for to include, let's see if I can show you, kind of like the initial research, which would be like adjacency diagrams, like programmatic. Do you think that's too many things? So it would be kind of like this: program requirements, zoning adjacencies.
This is a great example.
Okay.
Now, the key point of this dissemination is think about who is your audience.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, you know what is the problems out there. So how are you going to really deliver that problem to your audience? Is that the relevant to the audience, or something like that? How are you going to make the connection there? And then that's starting from there. And then you tell design process. So the adjacency requirements, some other diagram user need, that could be just overall kind of process. So you can say, hey, I've done all the user need. If you want to highlight something very special, for example, in user need and the interview, there's a particular items that you want to disseminate to your audience, because of they may not realize this is a very important aspect when you dealing with this kind of space. So you're saying, okay, based on whatever have all the survey or whatever here, here's the items you guys need to remember when you have this one. That is the new information I'd like to disseminate, right? And you've done all the design work, wonderful design work, and then you have a voila, we have a final design there. And think about at that moment. People said, wow, that's a great, or that's a great, that's a design. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And at the end, what is the final message to your client? Are you going to just, hey, that's done? Or are you going to re-summarize it, meaning it's as a conclusion or significant? Based on my experience, could it be this is a lesson that I learned, or this is a suggestions for you guys, to make solve the problem. This is the item that I've learned, and this is the item that I want to share. So if you really focus on what kind of message you want to deliver, then you can pick some relevant messages, and the other informations you can just ignore that, or simply just skip through those information. So that will help you to manage the information for this kind of presentation. That's a great example.
Yeah, and so that's just kind of one example of an interiors work. I'm sure there's lots of other things. Kyuho mentioned furniture design. I know there's been a lot of research in the external control systems program and class, as well as just exterior architecture. So very, very open-ended and very involved with research regardless of kind of your focus.
Kyuho, if we don't have final drawings ready by this date, which most likely I don't anticipate that happening, what extent would you consider like final project and summary? Would it be like a party concept, or would it be
party.
like just big kind of like overall elements of the building rather than like finalized beautiful drawings like
Yeah,
Sedona
so for
has?
example, let's say your case, the compressive studio prep class. So you've done a lot of very extensive research about what is the problems, what might be possible solutions. So you don't have to dealing with the building situation. You can just talk about the problems based on all I have right now, and because maybe you can include some building analysis kind of stuff. And here's the conclusions from this particular research, phase one, and this is the outcomes. And then this is very important that I've learned for this to solve these issues. We need to address this one. So educate your audience that, hey, we have these issues we're always dealing with. When you have this kind of situation, remember, this is the consideration you need to take and hire designer.
Yeah. That
So
could be like program elements that are important, like a
Yeah.
concept that's important, just kind of more like schematic design stuff.
Right. So oftentimes we have those kind of really wonderful ideas. We don't value that, but that is the creative thinking. That's where the problem solving started.
Right.
That's
And then
the
the design is sort of like after that. Yeah.
And
Okay.
also, so architecture student, if you have any architecture student in here, sometimes you want to introduce the methodologies. So for example, if you do some daylight analysis, have some sort of, the foot candle, the value, and you try to visualize that one, that methodology itself could be a good topic. If somebody else, everybody's doing it, then maybe you don't have that kind of privilege to be selected, but it's really valid to really talk about the methodology as well, because we designer do this kind of research method. This is a particular research method that I feel is very useful, and the lesson that I learned is this can be very useful for this kind of situation. So sometimes people focus on the methodology itself and then disseminate your journey, which is a I think data story. So that is also very valid. The entries that you can enter.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm glad that we have you guys here and Professor On here to facilitate this kind of discussion. So does anybody else have any questions like that about what to present, how to present right now? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to some or tips about oral presentations, which now we've covered the big kind of put your presentation together, what you should include. And now I'm going to talk about kind of making your message understandable for your audience and things like that. So the first thing to understand is that your audience will be a general audience. For example, I did not understand the terms that you guys were talking about, like with zoning and things like that. I was like, what? So, that's okay. And people are going to be listening to your presentations that don't understand what that is. And so take it some time to unpack what that means. Or if there's another term for zoning and things like that, maybe you want to use that and unpack that term a little bit. So making your presentation, you guys are clearly experts in your fields. And when you become really, really good at something, it's easy to forget that other people don't know all the terms and jargon and processes that you use all the time. So making those really clear to your audience, you want to think about presenting to someone who's educated but completely uninformed about your field. And although you've got all this great stuff going on with your design, what do you want your audience to take away from your presentation? So oral presentations, I think, are a really great and very unique medium because you're giving the audience a lot of information in a relatively short period of time. And so while you're putting your presentation together, you've got all this stuff going on. And so you have to decide what's your take-home message and what do you want them to remember after they go home and have listened to all the presentations of the day. And I don't think this will be a problem for you guys because you guys seem to rely mostly on images, which is awesome. But if you're using text, make it brief, make it legible. And use of visuals and images is really, really important in not only the Undergraduate Research Symposium presentations, but in all research presentations in general. And you guys seem to have that down. So lead into your images. They're beautiful, they're fantastic. And if you have any figures or visuals or images that are not easily understandable to perhaps a lay person, like there might be some symbols in a floor plan drawing that I might not understand. I'm a linguistics major. Taking a second to unpack what those mean is a good idea. And of course, you guys have just the most beautiful presentations I've ever seen. Whenever I see an architecture piece presentation, I'm like, wow, I can never live up to that. So I don't think you guys are going to have trouble going overboard with transitional effects or animations. And so you guys have a lot of visuals. I would say don't use them. Your slides are enough. And then a big picture thing I would say about oral presentations is you need to practice your presentation beforehand, probably multiple times, not just because you want to make sure the presentation is tight and understandable, but mostly for the time limit. For example, I'm prepping for a conference this weekend, and my presentation is like 2 or 3 minutes over the time limit. I want to cut not only those 2 or 3 minutes, but an additional 1 to 2 minutes so that I have time during the presentation to slow down and explain what I mean, because people understand things when they're said more slowly to them. So during your presentation, take some time to just take a breath and read the room a little bit, see if there's anything that maybe you want to expand on a little bit. Sometimes you're going so fast in your oral presentations, you get nervous and you forget to breathe. This has happened to me. And one thing you can do is you can just stop on a slide that is very image heavy, which I think you guys will have all very image heavy slides. And you can say, I'm going to give you a minute to unpack this while I take a drink of water. And the audience will think that is all for them. That's a gift that you're giving to them, when really it's a little bit for you, and you can take a second to catch your breath. When you're doing a poster presentation that's pre-recorded, I always draft a poster script because it is a short period of time, and you might be thinking 5 minutes seems like it's a long drafting process and I would have like 5 pages. And I am here to tell you that is not the case. It's hard to fit all of your information into 5 minutes. And so writing a script, but then reading it naturalistically and like a person while you're reading it, not like a robot, is a really effective strategy, I find, to prep for pre-recorded poster presentations. And if you've got a big project and you want to zoom in on a part of it, you have to figure out what's most important about this specific part and why am I including it. And again, use images on posters. On posters, images are your friend. So we already went over this a little bit, but I want to just mention that your abstracts must be uploaded by April 24th. And once you register for the Undergraduate Research Symposium, which you must do by April 12th, it's not like you're going to get booted if you have a less than perfect abstract. Once you register and you submit something for the abstract, you're in. And so this is a pretty low stakes way to practice abstract writing in a very safe environment. And then you must upload your materials that you're going to present by May 18th. So even though the actual symposium is May 27th, you need to think of May 18th as your deadline when things need to be completed. And now we're just gonna, we've kind of reached the finish line here. And we've talked about a lot, and we're gonna take more questions in a sec. But first I wanna mention some resources for you all. Assure is always open to help you with any logistical research problems, creative problems that you have. We may not be experts in architecture. However, we help plan the Undergraduate Research Symposium every single year. And so if you have a question about Undergraduate Research Symposium logistics and things like that, come to us and come to Assure Peer Mentor office hours, which we're going to talk about in a sec too. The Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, UROP, they are fantastic folks over there. They have summer fellowships open this summer, and they are open to all disciplines. So I encourage you all to check out UROP and apply. And of course, there's the Center for Undergraduate Research and Engagement. One of the folks from CURE, Lance, she's fantastic, helps us run Assure. And so she is very well versed in all of this stuff. And CURE is here to support you, no matter what discipline you come from, for the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And so a little bit about Assure, I already talked about this, but you can come to us for anything. And we do workshops, classroom visits, and peer mentoring, which I'm going to talk about now. So we have 3 peer mentors, Madeline, Alexis, and Julissa. They all come from different disciplines, so they're pretty well versed in all things. And you can go to talk to them about the Undergraduate Research Symposium and about kind of bouncing ideas off of them. And you can find their open hours here, and the open hours for the UROP and CURE folks are also here. And you can find more information about advising and stuff at these links. And I'm gonna just pop the link to these slides in the chat at the end of the presentation. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sedona for Ozek to talk about her wonderful organization.
I'm sure everyone's heard this spiel many times, but the American Institute of Architecture Students is a fantastic organization. I've been kind of on the board with them since I was a freshman. And so currently I'm the president of AIS, and we have been doing a lot of community-oriented projects, a lot of networking and outreach, and a lot of just support for students. So I think a big kind of mission of ours is to provide the voice of the students. We have a lot of students that will come to us and ask for different events or media support, and we get to provide that because of the funding that we receive from ASUO. So we have a really great opportunity with that. We have a group of 15 executive board members. So we have a really strong support team, which is great. It has been crazy that everything's like virtual, but we have made it work. We have a website. I can drop it in the chat. It's actually right there in the bottom right. And if you're interested, our meetings are every Monday at 5:15, and it's posted on that website.
Thanks so much, Sedona. And special thanks to all the people who've helped us put together, Professor On, Professor Kive, Lynch McCormick, Professor Hatfield, who's also the symposium co-chair, and of course, a special thank you to Sedona for being here and helping us out. Any questions, discussion points that you guys would like to talk on? Do you want to talk your project out with us? Anything like that?
One thing, this is going to be very, very beneficial for your future career in professionals. The reason for that is when you go into the professions, most likely you might be in the team setting. You're not going to have a chance to meet your client. But this is a great opportunity to take a leadership roles in your firm, because oftentimes you're going to meet your clients who don't have any knowledge about the architectural design. So terminologies that you're using may not understandable by your client. So this is a great exercise, how you're going to really generalize your knowledge for your general audiences. So that's a great, great exercise because you pay attention to it. With this record in your resume, and your professionals in whatever employees will recognize your ability to present your ideas in the general public. So there's a good visibility in terms of your leadership role in that professional firm. So I think this is a great opportunity for professional career as well.
Yeah, I love that you touched on it. Learning to communicate about your work is important for every aspect of life. So thank you. Other questions, discussion points?
I do have a question. First of all, thank you so much for this workshop. It's really informative, and this is really my first time learning about this. So I didn't went to the first workshop, so I'm gonna have to watch the first workshop recording. But I have a question. I had a project that I did with a teammate, and I was wondering if what happened if my teammates couldn't make it to the event. Is it okay if I present it on my own, or do we both have to be there?
I love this question because I presented on a team last year and I'm presenting on a team this year. We won the Undergraduate Research Award for Best Poster in the College of Arts and Sciences. So I am very aware of this, and I love that you're bringing up teams because it's really important in research and design to incorporate that into every aspect of what we do. So working with the team at the Undergraduate Research Symposium is extremely easy. If you're working with the team, only one person needs to fill out that official form by April 12th. And you would need information from your teammates about like their majors, their graduation date, their emails, things like that. So first you have to register and use that form. And then only one of you needs to submit your abstract, but everyone needs to fill out that confirmation form to say like, yes, I am presenting. But at the Undergraduate Research Symposium itself, totally fine. If your teammates are not there to present, you can just present on your own. I think that, in fact, oftentimes it is only one person that presents from the team. Last year our team made the recording together and we all attended the live session that we were in together. But it would be totally fine for you to just do that on your own and have your teammates involved, but they don't have to be available for the Undergraduate Research Symposium. Does that answer your question? Because I think it's a really important one.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, good, and thank you for coming.
All the time in the professional field as well, all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Other questions? Because that was a really important one. I'm glad we touched on it.
So who exactly will be like judging, or like, I don't know, like how is the process? Like,
Yeah, so it's a good question. And so in your live sessions, you'll be getting questions from moderators who are folks that are involved in the Undergraduate Research Symposium. They may or may not be involved in your discipline, but I'm guessing in your guys' case, there's going to be some architecture folks facilitating that discussion, but I'm not 100% sure on how those live discussions are going to go at this point. And so in terms of award evaluation, Professor An, do you know how that's happening this year? Are you guys evaluating for the awards? You're muted.
We are not sure yet, probably so.
Okay. Yeah, so that award, whoever ends up evaluating for the award, you can still apply for it, and it'll be evaluated by people who know what they're doing. But one thing I really like about the Undergraduate Research Symposium is that it allows a format for you to get feedback and ask questions to your peers, and for your peers to ask questions to you about your research. And we talked about this a little bit, how asking questions and getting feedback is really essential to your research. So you're going to be involved with people from all walks of life, all disciplines of research, and from your own discipline. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
yeah, of course.
And then your research will be published and listed as a that is also very significant. You can put that one line in your resume. That's also very significant.
Yeah, so your research will be, your name will be listed in the Undergraduate Research Symposium program. Additionally, when you upload your research, you give consent to put your research in a website called Scholars Bank, which is run by the University of Oregon, if you Google it, and your work is archived there. And so you can refer potential employers or grad schools or things like that to that link, and they can see that you've presented, and they can see your abstract, and they can see your presentation materials. So this is a very well documented event as well.
So even if we don't get the awards, our research will be publicized still?
Absolutely. Yes, the awards are not the be all end all of the symposium. They are more like incentive to participate. Yes, but
that is the best part of this symposium.
Yeah, yes, getting your research out there. It'll get out there no matter what, because you're putting it on the undergraduate research. So I want to say a little bit, since some of you may not have been at the first workshop. The Undergraduate Research Symposium is taking place mostly on YouTube this year. It took place mostly on YouTube last year as well. And so you can go on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website, find the link to YouTube, their YouTube, and there's a ton of webinars and tutorials from Assure, and you can find the first workshop in this series on the Undergraduate Research Symposium YouTube page, but you can also find live sessions and poster presentations from last year, so you can get a sense of how the research was publicized. And the research is still up there, like our poster that won last year, it's still on the website. So it is there. It will be publicized no matter what.
Yeah, the layout, one thing you might want to remember is you want to work with your advisor. So faculty advisor. So you're going to pick your faculty advisor, and then when you work with them, and the advisor will help you.
Exactly. So you get a lot of support from your faculty advisor. When you win, they win too. So yeah. Any other questions? If not, that is absolutely fine. Thank you so, so much for your participation and for coming. And I really, really hope to see you guys at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And stop by Assure office hours, Cure, UROP, talk to Professor Ahn about it for participating. And we really hope to see you at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Tilly. Bye, Kiho.
Bye.